Matakiasan. Namaste, Sarve Mirerishtar. So, no, Osio, all my relatives, I'd like to start with a bit of a meditation today. At this time, it keeps coming to me. There's a lot going on out there right now. A couple more volcanoes went. One that's been dormant for many years. They assumed it dormant, and it blew. It's the third one. Taking a nice deep breath. And let it out. Sachitananda Parabrahma Purushottama Paramatma Shri Bhagavati Sameta Shri Bhagavate Namah Sachitananda Parabrahma Purushottama Paramatma Shri Bhagavati Sameta Shri Bhagavate Namah Sachitananda Parabrahma Purushottama Paramatma Shri Bhagavati Sameta Shri Bhagavate Namah Hari Om Tat Sat 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. Chitananda Parabrahma Purushottama Paramatma Shri Bhagavati Sameta Shri Bhagavate Namah Sachitananda Parabrahma Purushottama Paramatma Shri Bhagavati Sameta Shri Bhagavate Namah Sachitananda Parabrahma Purushottama Paramatma Shri Bhagavati Sameta Shri Bhagavate Namah Satchitananda Parabrahma Purushottama Paramatma Shri Bhagavate Samhita Shri Bhagavate Namah Hari Om Tat Sat Hari Om Tat Sat Hari Om Tat Sat Hari Om Tat Sat. Satchitananda Parabrahma Purushottama Paramatma Shri Bhagavate Samhita Shri Bhagavate Namah Hari Om Tat Sat 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. Feel that resonance. Wiggle your fingers and your toes. Just something about that sound, yeah. Telling you. So I'm going to go on into my journal entry. If you're just here for the meditation, feel free to move on. So for myself, what's been coming to me? You know, we have that great divide thing taking place. The split's happening, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. However, for myself, I felt the pull back. Felt the pull to another direction. Lots of different pulls, lots of different places. Constantly bringing it back to right here, right now. And actually witnessing it as more of like a magic taking place. Allowing the feelings, allowing the thoughts, allowing the emotions, allowing all of that to come up and through. Staying present while feeling it. No easy task. It sounds simple, right? No easy task. So for myself, it's definitely this mother energy. We've got to be very, very clear in the feminine. For what is true for us before we take action. That being present is an action. Being present with what is an action. Being present with your feelings, your beliefs, your emotions, your tethers, your baggage, your shadows, whatever you want to call it, your stuff, our stuff, the stuff that's going on in the world. Being present with it is an action. And then how we respond to it. And is kind of like the masculine energy. And so I found it interesting that the volcano in Russia, the volcano in Russia, that has a double caldera. It has the feminine, which is more gentle in her stuff, and then you have the masculine, and that's the one that blew. He's a little unpredictable, they say, from all the studies that they've done on these volcanoes. Through soil testing and all of that, because they have never blown before in our recorded history. So I found that interesting. And for me, it's very symbolic. I mean, if we just go doing stuff, we can make a mess of things. If we don't listen to that inner voice, that inner guidance, our feminine side. You know, it's that getting quiet, getting still, listening within, listening to that intuition, listening to that space, and then taking action from those impulses that, you know. Now, sometimes those impulses, I mean, you know, We all have our parts. So, Hitler, all of these, including Trump, they have their part. They are stirring stuff up for us to get really, really clear and going. Is this how we really want to live and what we really, really want? Anyway, that's not where I wanted to go with this. Because I have been doing a lot of contemplation personally with this whole thing that got stirred up for me, which is the mothers. So I have these different mothers. And I'm saying different mothers because yes, my biological mother had her baggage. It was handed down in the ancestral. I can see that. She struggled with the two sides of herself. She was a very loving mother. And I had all things considered, I did have a very good family, very good upbringing. There were their challenges, and I have shared many of those. So there was that whole piece, and I found my core wound, this whole I didn't come in as expected, wanted a boy, got a girl, no child wants to hear, and I remember it. No child wants to hear, oh, fuck, no, it's supposed to be a boy. No. And so instead of being a Michael, I became a Michelle. Yes, that is my biological birth name. So I had a beautiful, from what I can remember, I don't remember a whole lot after that, except when my brother came in. And I don't remember a whole lot of personal nurturing with my biological mother until much later. But most of her attention was either with herself, trying to keep her mental stability, where my grandmother stepped in and did a lot of the raising. My sister treated me like her baby doll, like she was her mother. My mother. Many times, so I was her baby doll. I was a live baby doll. And, my dad was doing his thing. And then, of course, my brother comes in, and so the attention swayed between the two of them, and I shared a lot of this in another video. What was beautiful and wonderful with my mom is she chose, I'm not sure whether willingly or unwillingly, to be a stay-at-home mom. She did love us very, very dearly. And when we'd all ended up in elementary school or in school, she wanted to stretch her wings, and she picked up a job in the cafeteria at the school that we went to. So there were always eyes on us, even in the playground. Because my grandmother lived in the apartment complex, and her window oversaw the playground in the school. And of course, after school, we would go to grandma's. And then when mom got off work, we would walk. It was within walking distance. And we had safe neighborhoods, there was never any issues. except for this one little dog that chased me. Yeah, I remember that little dog. The little dog that would chase me down and bite my ankles. I was more scared of the little dogs. I'd walk up to the pit bulls, I'd walk up to the Great Danes, the German Shepherds, all of them. But that one little dog. Anyway, many years later, I understand, Anyway, that was when the bullying began in school, because I started sharing about how I knew the animals and all of this and that, and talked about my Natasha. She was a angel that she would open doors and we'd have conversations, and she'd lure me outside sometimes when she knew it was safe for me to go and get back behind the garage and say hi to the dogs that I wasn't allowed to say hi to. Everybody was afraid of them. I wasn't. And then the dogs that lived in back of us, and then where we learned to ride dirt bikes, because my dad was a motorcycle man, but he was still pretty wild when they had met and stuff, just gotten out of the Navy. And Mom did put her foot down and says, no, I'm not raising all these kids on my own. You're gonna have to stop riding until they get to a certain age. So he did, but he loved to ride so much. So he introduced dirt biking to us kids, and he lived vicariously through us. Now, I was never allowed to compete. I was more of a reserved. I really didn't get into, I got into the speed and all of that, but they didn't have just women races back then, and there was not very many chicks or little girls that would ride with the boys they wanted to ride, so we would kind of ride off other places and just putt around but watch the boys, because they would kick each other off their bikes midair and all kinds of crazy stuff. But my brother got into it, so, and Dad loved it. Anyway, so my dad, being Navy, would take us to the Lake Erie every single weekend. As soon as the ice would break and the perch were coming, or the walleye, we would be at Lake Erie. It's like we opened up the lake every single weekend. So every Friday, as soon as we got off school, we had to have all of our chores done on Thursday. And that's when we would get our allowance and get our inspections. And yeah, trust me, I can clean like a freaking tornado. Well, better than a tornado, because you know what I'm saying. Anyway, you weren't allowed to do anything half-assed. If you did it half-assed, you had to do it all over again, and your allowance was cut in half. And if she still didn't like it, it was still done half-assed, so your allowance was cut in half again, and you had to do it again. And that kept going until you got it right. And usually there was no allowance by that time. I remember my dad would say, the big red bear's out. It was usually around her moon cycles. Anyway, the big red bear's out. Take cover. Be on your best behavior. Dad would know. And he'd warn us. He was more of the nurturer. Now, the other thing that made Mom amazing, she, for whatever reason, I'm sure there's some history in back of this, she would never just turn us kids over. Never. Unless it was mom. And it wasn't until we got much, much older that she would allow us to stay with my other grandmother. Now, we loved going over there and visiting her. That was my other grandma, because she knew how to be a kid. And she would get on the floor and play, and she had all these games and all that kind of stuff, but we were never allowed to spend the night because of the fear of my Uncle Kenneth. We had that fear installed in us. I knew he was harmless. We all knew he was harmless. However, and we were turned against our uncle and aunt and cousins for other reasons, because Uncle had, I think it was multiple MS, or one of them. It affected his nerves, and so he was disabled. And he had a very, very difficult time with the Ohio winters, and so he moved to Florida, and I think jealousy kicked in or something, and they could not believe that they could move and start a whole new life and all of this and that, and being on the system. That just, and they thought that he was making it up and just being, they were bums. I'm like, wow. Anyway, so that began that separation in the family. Then there was the, and my grandpa, he worked freaking hard. General Motors, over 40 some years for the money that he received. And he was during that depression and all. Now, at the time growing up, we were taught that he was stingy. Well, he was taught to be stingy, and he had to learn that that's just, he still had his tomato soup with a slice of bread every morning after his cup of coffee. He had this little, and they lived very, very sparingly. Now, all of that went into Uncle Kenneth's care. I learned later, if my memory serves me correctly, that my family in Florida never took a dime. They bought a couple of things maybe that they might have needed, like a car to get them around town, one that, they didn't have to, or something, just very, and made sure Uncle Kenneth was taken care of. My dad did too. My dad did too. He made sure of it. And he made sure of putting everything very precise and stipulated when he took care of Grandpa's estate. And then made sure he had everything in order and it couldn't be reversible for his. It was during that process when I woke up from all the drugs and trying to live this crazy, paranoid, look out, get them before they get you, and I mean, I could just go into a lot there where the paranoia just really took over, and I was eliminated from the family. And again, all of that is in another video. But what I'm sharing is there was a very beautiful side to my family. They weren't like evil. No. But definitely a mindset with the alcohol and all of it, just anyway. So there was good, and there was, I'll use the word interesting. So I catch those crazy brain thoughts and patterns, and periodically, I was taught that you can't trust women. So I had actually one girlfriend that I trusted, and then I realized a couple of things that she had. But which comes around boys. So yeah, the date rape thing took place because, I just had to experience that. I found that out later. And then another girlfriend, because I was trying to make friends with other girls, thought I could trust her. She lured me right in, and karate instructor, and yeah, one beer, and I knew how to handle. I had been testing, how you are as teenagers. Anyway, something was definitely laced, and karate instructor took me off, and she actually handed me over to him. He took me off and then dropped me off at her house, and her mother and her greeted me. Oh my gosh, let me get you inside. Let's get you inside and get you a shower. Let's call your mom. Oh, that must have been horrible. They knew exactly what they were doing. It was what they do. And so, and there was just some really strange things, like, I had gotten the anorexia nervosa and bulimia. I was so ready to move to Florida. We were gearing up to move to Florida. Dad worked for the government, and he wanted to be closer to his family. My dad was a family man. Even all the lies and so forth, he's like, this is my sister, this is my family. He wanted to move down to Florida. He'd been, hearing from Gene about the fishing and all that kind of stuff, and Dad was like really into all that. Well, he turned the job down, and I was just trying to control my life. I was being forced to eat this schedule. My mom was on this health kick, and our refrigerator had a padlock on it. The food cabinet had a padlock on it. Their bedroom had a padlock on it. We were a lot of handful. I mean, our dietary stuff was just, Mom was on this health kick, and just, yeah, very, very interesting. And so I'm like, I am not eating chicken livers. I am not eating this. I am not eating that. And I went anorexia nervosa with bulimia. And I ended up in the hospital for 12 weeks, Sycamore Hospital for 12 weeks. It was an inpatient. It was a beautiful experimental program, and it worked. When you know it, they shut it down. Anyway, they shut down things that really work. And then, yeah, anyway. So, the response I received, do you know how much money you cost me? That statement was what I remember. Do you know how much money you cost me? Just eat. It's a mental illness. I did a whole paper. It was the only paper in English class. This, in high school, I aced it. And I kept it. I think I still have a copy of it somewhere in my digital files. Anyway, I definitely healed that then, but I did not heal a lot of the... Anyway, so my first anxiety attack was when my grandma transitioned. She's my rock, one person that believed in me, and she was the one that shared with me, because I was a little girl, when Cher came out with that Half-Breed song, man, I would sing and dance that over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, down in our basement. The pole. I didn't know then I had native blood. It was later when Grandma and I would have our talks and so forth, and she shared with us that, well, this is my mom, and she showed us a picture. The one picture she had, and she still had her pearl necklace. And that picture, she handed her mother, Pearl. They were in it's right there by Cumberland Falls on that little 90 road. We went there, and we had to climb this. There's a little tiny church there. Whitley City, Burnside, Somerset, and you go heading in. I want to say Russell something. Anyway, you go further and you'll get to like Harlan, over in that way. This last tornado went right through there from Somerset to that town. That's the area my grandma grew up in, and that's where she saw Pearl for the last time. When she was 5 years old with her sister, who was 7. Her sister was 2 years older than her. And she came on a white horse and handed them each a pearl necklace and a picture of her on the horse. And she left. Tom, whose grandpa, their dad, was the sheriff of Whitley County, Somerset, that area. And he would ship the girls off periodically to his sister, and then she would ship them back. And they'd go back and forth on the train, and one of his brothers or so forth would escort the girls. And of course, the oldest girl, Grandma's sister, was used a lot during those. Grandma said she would remember, that they would disappear for a while. And she'd come back. So that's a little bit of a history. Okay, I'll finish. So Tom, when the girls got older, Grandma's sister, I can't remember her name. I can see her face because I can see the picture she showed of her. She was getting a little, difficult to handle, and Tom just didn't want to be bothered with the girls. He was a woman's man. He was a womanizer. He was doing that colonious thing and seducing these native women, well, until they caught on. You saw the movie. Befriending them, seducing them, marrying them, having children, sending them off or killing them. And they get to keep everything. So that was one of the ways they gained a lot of land from the natives. So here he has these two girls, they're half-breeds. What are you gonna do with them? So this is when they invented the Institute for the Feeble-Minded. And you could put your wife or your children in there. No questions asked. Oh, they're nuts. And put them in. You can't get out. You're just institutionalized for life. They didn't let him out. Grandma's sister learned about this as they were on the train, because they weren't headed to Louisville this time. So she grabbed the rifle, put it in her mouth, and shot herself. Yes, in front of my grandma. So my grandma arrives at this institute by herself, and she realizes what the fuck is going on. I saw the records. Which, after we found them, was destroyed. I wish I would have tucked them under my shirt. We were trying to do it the right way. My grandma kept all that a secret. Clear up to her deathbed. I'm talking within 30 minutes of her death, making her transition. secret. Nobody knew. She couldn't let nobody know. Because one of the nurses there knew she didn't belong and helped her escape. Underground. And Grandma made it to Cincinnati and met a policeman, of all things. And married him. And because of all that she had experienced in that institute, she almost died having my mom and had to have an emergency hysterectomy on the spot when she gave birth to my mom. So my mom was an only child. Probably hence the narcissism. Not saying that all only children are that way, but I can only imagine her upbringing. My grandma was a sweetheart. She may not have always been a sweetheart of this, I don't know. Because I do remember one time, and I'll never forget it. It was the moment that I'm like, holy shit, this is a scary woman. She was cleaning. And I was sitting on the chair, left seat. I had my feet over the table, propped up on the table. Footstool. Grandma was coming through. And she asked me to move. I can't even remember exactly what she said, but she basically was asking me to move. And, well, I was probably 12, 13, maybe 14. And I said something back to her. I don't even remember what I said. And the next thing you know, she had me with both hands around my neck and picked me literally up off the ground and shook me and says, "Don't you ever sass me. Don't you ever sass me. Don't ever talk back to me." And set me down. And I mean, I was like, whoa, this was a whole other side of my grandma I'd never seen before. I was like, no worries there. I will never sass you back. And she later apologized, but I can only imagine the treatment, her upbringing, you know, those shadow sides coming through. Who knows? Now, moving that forward, that was my first anxiety attack when she made her transition. Because I had nobody left to talk to that believed these feelings, these knowings, this inside of me, and that began my prescription drug path. I ended up in the hospital. They started me on Boost Bar, and it just began snowballing from there. Now, from there was the 7-year journey. It was 7 years with my mom, digging ancestry, going to making trips up to Columbus, making trips to Kentucky, making trips to Louisville. I remember going to Cherokee Land once and trying to find pearl. We sitting at some of the aunties there in Somerset and listening to their stories about how the family built the Wolf Creek Dam and the land that they have, and how some of the timber is they don't do clear cutting. They go through and tag them and do the select type of thing, and all these different things and stuff. And so now fast forward a little bit. I'm on 7 medications that are prescribed to me, blah, 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 the doghouse, I have my awakening, whoa, and I start learning universal truths and start stepping into my own, and it's like, I don't believe the same shit that this family believes, not everybody's out to get you. I believe in a God, they didn't believe in a God. I remember bringing this beautiful Spanish, African, he was a half-breed himself, beautiful, beautiful, gorgeous dancer. I remember bringing him to meet the family, and my mom hyperventilating. She couldn't even get one word out. She's just, and collapsed on the floor. Extremely racist. And just a lot of paranoia. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on, and I don't even want to. So anyway, there was a period of time where my family saw how happy I was and am. And they jumped on the paddy wagon with me for a little while, like, oh, how do you do this, They saw how amazing everything was after my divorce, and, that this is happening, and, how the doghouse changed. I wasn't breaking up dog fights anymore. I just have this beautiful, happy, healthy, between 7 and 30 dogs at my house at any one given time, and they all get along, and they're all healthy, and we're happy, and things are just cruising along and going and great. And they're like, wow, what are you doing? My family joined in for a little while. I was the only one that was allowed to babysit my niece and my nephew. I was the only one they trusted fully to babysit their children. And I leave for the 50-state peregrination. I come back, and I'm like, I gotta keep going. And that was the end. That began a whole spiraling things. I don't know. I don't know exactly what the triggers were. I do know that my niece and my nephew still remember me. I do know that my beloved niece, the one that I think we definitely had a past life connection, I cut the umbilical cord. She continued to reach out to me even after my biological mom ordered absolutely no contact. And it's because believed that I was in a cult and swindling money. And I remember one time my dad saying, well, you can't stay here because last time you stayed here, she went through and took all the TVs and computers and took them to Staples because she swore you were bugging her, tapping in and all this kind of stuff. And I'm going, really? He goes, yeah. I said, oh my gosh, does she realize I'm the cult leader? I'm the president and founder of the nonprofit organization. It's my ministry. And this gentleman, this beautiful partner, this chase vehicle person, you know, he's following my ass around. She believed that he was making some kind of a puppet out of me and you know, stealing money and taking all my money. I'm like, no, I'm doing this out of my own. Every penny, the entire peregrination and everything, it was funded by primarily the president and vice president of the nonprofit. It was our giveaway. It was our gratitude for everything. It was my gratitude. He followed me in it. He believed in it wholeheartedly, 100%. And I learned so much from him, and he learned so much from me. Part of it, I believe, turned out to be a fishing expedition, trying to catch this fish, but it, because there were a lot of ultimatums put in, and, well, I don't do ultimatums. We'd meet halfway in the ultimatum, because 9 times out of 10, we were in a position where it was kind of like, well, you know, either I'm leaving your ass here and good luck, or you're leaving my ass here and good luck. So we would bring it back around, and we learned how to work together very, very beautifully, and became bestest of friends until just recently. I had to cut all tethers. Something karmic shifted. And so, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. Same thing happened with the biological family. Something clicked. Now I have my suspicions, but it's definitely over money, which ever since I was a little girl, I shared with them, you made the money, enjoy it. It's not about making money to turn around and leave to your kids. No, you know, especially, you know, my dad was really, really good at teaching us. Well, actually, they drilled it into us. It was almost like financial stuff. Lots and lots of secrets, lots and lots of secrets. I shared that in another video. Anyway, what I really was, this is going on for like an hour. Well, this is for me. So, I'll make it into 2 separate videos. That way it's just the video and then the journal. What I'm really, really wanting to get to with myself, all this story stuff is coming from, I guess I wanted to share that there really, really were good pieces. It's not that I have all bad memories. And that was one thing that my adopted mom really wanted to hear. Oh, good. So you do have some good memories. I'm like, yeah, I have some kick-ass memories of my family. And I also have a lot of evil shit. What I call evil. And some really serious heartbreak shit. You know, I mean, if I didn't love my family and kept going back to heal it and just being very, very determined and standing up for in my own sovereign integrity and going back until they said just quit coming back, and then still loving them and going and having this in my heart that, you know, if they called and said that there was a dire need, if it was in my power and it was meant to be, I would be there. I mean, that's Creator for us, right? No matter how far down a fucking path you go, Creator still loves us and says, hey, I got you. I got you. Come here. There's a different, let's try something different. Creator did that for me. I was on my deathbed. I was determined to commit suicide. I tried 3 times and I should have been dead, right? So that's the way I am. You know, you may not speak to them, you may not be around them, but you love them and hold them, and one day that spark, and we're there to catch our brothers and sisters. We're there, right? That's what I love about my adopted mom too. So for me, swinging this all the way back around, for me, I have been like, I was laying there, I was going through all these emotions, and I finally just got to this. It's like, yes, it's just like blue, right? And then there was this, okay, growing up to be just like my mom, adopted mom, but me. Well, for me, you've got to take the good and the bad of both. There were some thorns with my adopted mom. She learned to kind of smooth them out. But there were thorns. Trust me, she was somebody you didn't want to piss off. Kind of like my grandma. So there's this. But my grandma didn't organize. I didn't share that. My mom wanted to be around us all the time, so she became a scout leader. And she was a damn freaking good one. Everybody wanted to be in her little tribe because she did shit. She was awesome. She took us to Put-in Bay. She took us to Cedar Point. She took us to Kings Island. She took us to Washington, D.C. We had so many patches as little brownies and juniors. It was amazing. Everybody wanted to be in her tribe. And it brought the community together. This is where we began, kind of making some friends and so forth. Of course, Mom was always like, you watch out for those women. They're catty. They'll stab you in the back. Well, I healed that. which is how I could bring all the dogs together. And I became a part of a beautiful, beautiful grandmother's community. We had a full moon grandmother healing drumming circle. It was really awesome. It came out of South America, Peru. Grandmother Barbara Redtail Hawk, and then I wanted to grow up and be just like her. And well, she grew me up, and we started our own circle because they no longer was doing it in Yellow Springs, and so we did it at the church. And she asked me to be the grandmother of the North because that grandmother could not make it there, and said, please ask her. She's probably the next one that's ready. And that was amazing, beautiful experiences. Anyway, so for me, I'm sitting with this going, wow, I can recognize, see, feel, hear, because I've been there, this. I can see, feel, hear, because I've been there, this. These were things that my adopted mom never had in her experience. And she was fascinated listening to me and us delving into these things. Of course, she dealt with a lot of children. She was a counselor for children. She brought her shepherd in Luna into her sessions, and Luna actually saved her life from one of the kids once. But that started beginning this, what they call pet therapy now, but that was way, way, way back in her day. It was unheard of. She actually went to the board and everybody and said, can I try this? And they says, well, you are responsible. The facility is not responsible if anything happens. And she took that responsibility. So, and she came from a very, very privileged family, and she admitted it. Now, her challenge was around male authority. Clear up to all of this, where we're at right now, today. So I'm like, that's probably why she was like, she made sure everybody was taken care of. And we delved into a lot of conversations, but I'll bet she comes back as another kick-ass. Just saying. She thought that maybe this might be her last go around, but I don't think so. I don't know. Well, that's between her and Creator. Anyway, so it's like bringing the best of adopted mom, the best of real mom, with, because it's all, you have to bring it all together, that understanding of the other side, the thorns, and the other side of these thorns together. So one of my previous journals, I was contemplating this. Okay, there's this divine feminine and there's this divine feminine energies. What's the middle ground? It's kind of like the masculine. There's this masculine and there's this masculine. There's always the middle ground, right? So this is where I'm at. And this is where imagination is amazing stuff. But it's that, for me, and being me, allowing that energy, that middle ground energy, to use me as my personality, my characteristics, to bring that out into the world. And each one of us gets to be, do that within ourselves. So we're healing that stuff from those lineages inside of ourselves and adding our personality, our gifts to it. The added advantage, you could say, that I personally have for myself is that beautiful mentorship, that beautiful relationship with my adopted mom. And I guess you could say, getting to have a real good, authentic relationship with my grandma. Well, and my mom, my biological mom. And at this point in time, for myself, I'm not afraid of my dark side. I faced it several times over. I'm more scared of unleashing who I really am in the light side. Isn't that fear? Is how powerful we really are. I think we've all gotten glimpses. I believe we've all gotten glimpses. That can be scary. It's exciting. But it's also scary. Maybe that's the purifying of the White Panther. And it's with that, I'm going to settle into that feeling and end this here.